Have you ever driven past a place so quiet it feels like even your curiosity is whispering, "Turn around"? Welcome to America, where some locations are gated, posted with warning signs, and sometimes quietly erased from local routines for a reason that has nothing to do with fun folklore. And let me be clear from the start, this is not the usual countdown with spooky piano, recycled footage, and a few cheap, jumpy lines. No. This time, I'm taking you straight into places you're warned not to step into. Places where crossing one boundary is enough to start a chain of trouble that rarely ends the way you want. Because the same questions keep coming back. Why would somewhere beautiful enough to stop your car be closed to the public? How does a place that once had a real community go dark like someone flipped a switch? And why do some mysteries not need a face to make your skin crawl? Watch to the end and you'll see those two words "keep out" in a completely different way. Let's start. 11. Dudleytown, Connecticut. They call it Dudleytown, but don't picture a cute New England town with a diner and a post office. Picture a patch of forest in northwest Connecticut where the road name itself sounds like a warning, "Dark entry." And the strangest part isn't what you see, it's what you're not allowed to do. Because this place is private property. Not a park, not a tourist stop, more like someone's backyard that got swallowed by trees, old stone foundations, and a reputation that refuses to die. People still sneak in looking for a haunted village, and locals are basically like, "Please stop turning our woods into your horror movie." In daylight, Dudleytown is almost disappointingly normal. Quiet, green, just ruins and rocks. Then the story takes its turn and you hear about the so-called Dudley curse. Here's what that usually means. The legend says the Dudley family carried a streak of terrible luck that followed them here, like tragedy had their last name on a mailing list. People point to deaths in the family, hard times, folks leaving, and later they tack on extra layers like madness, accidents, and something in the woods that pushes people over the edge. It's the kind of curse story that doesn't need one big monster, it just needs a chain of misfortune that sounds eerie when you say it out loud. And this is how myths get born. One famous example, a woman riding a horse through the woods gets mistaken for some floating apparition. Next thing you know, the tale grows legs, and suddenly everybody knows. Dudleytown is supernatural, or maybe it's just the woods doing what the woods always do. Shadows, nerves, and a brain that hates not having an explanation. Here's my read. Dudleytown isn't scary because it's cursed. It's scary because it's the perfect loop. A dark forest plus crumbling ruins makes people anxious. Anxiety makes stories. Stories bring trespassers. Trespassers bring police and no entry signs. And those signs, they make the stories feel true. So if you ever hear someone say, "We should totally go," remember, this isn't forbidden because of ghosts. It's forbidden because people keep acting like ghosts. Number 10. Stull, Kansas. If you ever drive west of Lawrence, Kansas, you can pass Stull in the kind of blink that makes you wonder if it was even real. Cornfields, a quiet intersection, a handful of buildings, and then the thing everybody actually came for, the cemetery. Because Stull isn't famous for what it is. It's famous for what people swear it means. Here's the legend in plain English. Back in the 1970s, a story spreads that the devil shows up at Stull Cemetery twice a year, on Halloween night and the spring equinox. Not maybe, not sometimes. Twice a year, like he's got it on his calendar. And then the rumor levels up. Stull is one of the 7 gateways to hell. There's talk of an old church nearby, a basement, a staircase, the whole "don't go down there" package. And that schedule is the genius part. A haunting with a date and time is like a party invite for bored college kids. So you get the scene everyone in the area knows. It's late October, the road is dark, cars creep along like they're trying not to wake the corn. People whisper, dare each other, step toward the gravestones, waiting for something to happen. Meanwhile, the sheriff's deputies are out there too, because this is private property and Halloween brings the wrong kind of attention. More than one local has had to deal with vandalism, trespassing, and strangers treating real graves like a haunted attraction. Here's my read. Stull isn't a portal, it's a perfect myth machine. Why? It's remote, it's simple, and it has a storyline with a timer. That timer triggers people to show up. People showing up triggers patrols, barriers, and lights. And the moment you see police cars near a cemetery at night, your brain goes, okay, so something must be going on. The legend feeds on the reaction to the legend. So if you're tempted to test it, don't. Not because you'll meet the devil, because you'll meet a deputy. Number 9. Whitehall, New York. Whitehall, New York looks like the kind of place you pass through on the way to somewhere louder. A quiet canal town, old streets, water nearby, and that small town feeling like everyone knows which car does not belong. Then you see it, Bigfoot, not on a blurry photo, on purpose. A statue, a symbol, a wink from the town that says, yeah, we heard the stories too. And Whitehall did something most places would never do. In 2004, they actually put it in writing, a local rule to protect Bigfoot. Not because they had proof locked in a vault, but because the legend had become part of the town's identity. That is the hook. Whitehall is not running from the mystery. It is wearing it like a hoodie. The lore goes back decades. Late 1970s talk of sightings and strange footprints. People saying they heard odd calls in the woods like something big was arguing with the night. And once a town gets branded as Bigfoot country, everything becomes evidence. A snapped branch, a shadow on a ridge, a weird sound that could be an animal, or could be your imagination deciding to have fun. Whitehall is a perfect example of how a mystery survives without needing a monster to step into the street. You have forests and hills close by. You have a town small enough that a rumor spreads faster than a weather forecast. And you have a story with a character everybody recognizes. That is the trigger. Once the character exists, people stop seeing random noise. They start seeing a plot. It even turns into a kind of local culture. People show up, laugh about it, maybe try a Sasquatch call, like they are ordering takeout from the woods. And the town benefits because suddenly you are not just driving past. You are stopping, you are looking, you are wondering. But here is the twist nobody says out loud. Whitehall is not a warning sign. It is a mirror. It asks one question. When you stare into a dark tree line, are you seeing what is there or what you came to find? Number 8, Elkhorn, Wisconsin. Elkhorn, Wisconsin is the kind of place you drive through and think, looks peaceful. Farms, open sky, long roads that feel like they were built for slow country songs. Then someone says 2 words, Bray Road, and suddenly every mile marker feels like it is watching you back. The story goes like this. Late 1980s into the 1990s, people start reporting the same kind of thing near Elkhorn. A figure on the roadside, hairy, big, wolf-like head, sometimes on all fours, sometimes standing up like it forgot which world it belongs to. Not a cute, I saw a weird animal story. More like, I saw something that made my stomach drop. One of the most repeated scenes sounds almost normal at first. A driver comes around a dark stretch and sees something crouched near the ditch, like it is eating roadkill. You know that feeling when you think deer, coyote, dog, whatever. Then it turns its head and looks straight at the car, and it does not move like an ordinary animal. Not panicked, not confused, just aware. That is the moment people remember years later because it feels personal. A local reporter, Linda Godfrey, followed the reports and treated the witnesses like real people, not punchlines. And that matters because the legend stuck around. It did not fade. It became part of the area's identity, the way small towns sometimes carry one story like a scar. Bray Road is a perfect setup for a myth. The road is rural and dark. The landscape is wide open, but your visibility is actually terrible. Shadows stretch. Animals move fast. Your brain fills in gaps because it hates blanks. Then you hear the story first, and now every shadow has a costume. That is the loop. A confusing moment becomes a rumor. The rumor becomes a lens. The lens turns normal night sounds into proof. And once enough people share the same fear, the place itself starts to feel different, even if nothing changes. So if you ever go looking, remember this is farm country. Do not trespass. Do not pull into someone's field like you own it. The scariest thing you can do out here is act careless. Next on our list, the mystery is not something you catch in your headlights. It is something that waits in one spot and lets you come to it. Number 7. Paulding area, Michigan. If you end up in Michigan's Upper Peninsula at night, someone will eventually lean in and say, "Okay, do you want to see the Paulding light?" And it sounds like a joke until you're on this dark gravel road with trees on both sides and nothing ahead but a barricade and a valley of black. That is the ritual. You pull up to the end of the road, kill your headlights, and wait. No haunted house ticket, no tour guide, just silence and your own brain turning the volume up on every tiny sound. Then it happens. A small light appears way out in the distance. Sometimes it looks steady. Sometimes it wobbles like it's moving. Some nights people swear it changes color like it's trying on different moods. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. It feels like someone out there is holding a lantern and teasing you, just far enough away that you'll question your own eyes. The legend gives it a face. Locals have told stories about a railroad worker, the kind of guy who would have carried a lantern, killed in an accident, and still out there searching. That story hits because it's simple and sad, and it fits the scene perfectly. A lonely valley, a light that shouldn't be there, a reason that makes your chest tighten. Paulding Light is a masterclass in how a mystery survives. You have a perfect stage, a dark valley that messes with distance. You have a perfect trigger, a simple routine anyone can do. And you have a perfect explanation that sits right between science and folklore. Michigan Tech students actually studied it and showed how car headlights and taillights from a stretch of US 45 can line up just right and make that floating light effect. And honestly, that does not kill the vibe. If anything, it makes it creepier because now you realize how easily the world can fool you when you're standing in the dark wanting something to happen. So you drive away with 2 stories in your pocket. One is a ghost with a lantern, the other is physics playing tricks in a valley. And the scariest part is you get to choose which one you believe. Number 6. Ruby, Arizona Ruby. Arizona doesn't feel like a ghost town at first. It feels like a trick. Because there's a lake sitting out there in the desert like somebody forgot to tell it. This place is supposed to be dry and dead. Then you learn the first rule of Ruby. You don't just visit. Ruby is private property. And as of March 6th, 2024, it's closed to the public. That one fact does more for the legend than any scary story ever could, because the moment a place is locked up, your imagination starts knocking on the door. Back when Ruby was alive, it was a mining town. Real families, a post office, at its peak, over 1,000 people. Then the mine fades, the town empties, and the mail stops coming in the early 1940s. What's left is the weirdest kind of silence. Not empty silence. Loaded silence. Like the land remembers noise. And Ruby's history has its own dark chapters. The kind locals repeat in careful sentences. The kind that makes you understand why a place can feel haunted even if you don't believe in ghosts. People lived hard here. Some things happened that nobody wants to romanticize. Then everyone moved on and the buildings just stayed behind like abandoned teeth. But the signature moment, the one that makes Ruby feel unreal, is dusk. The light drops, the air cools, and then from the old mine openings, a flood of Mexican free-tailed bats can pour out like smoke. Thousands of them moving as one, turning the sky into something that looks alive and angry. Ruby scares people because it stacks 3 triggers on top of each other. First, it was a crowded town that vanished. Second, it has a beautiful lake that makes the ruins feel wrong, like the scene doesn't match the story. Third, it's closed, so you can't satisfy your curiosity. That creates a loop. The less access you have, the more your brain fills in the gaps. And the gaps are where every ghost story lives. So if you ever hear someone say, "Let's sneak in," don't. Not because Ruby will get you, because the owner might. Number 5. Helltown, Ohio. People call it Helltown, Ohio, and if you hear that name, you expect flames, pentagrams, something dramatic. What you actually get is worse in a quieter way. Helltown isn't a real town on the map. It's a nickname people slapped onto a slice of Boston Township inside Cuyahoga Valley, wedged between Cleveland and Akron. In daylight, it looks like a normal national park area. Trees, trails, that calm Midwestern green. Then you turn onto a road that feels unfinished. There's a stretch locals point to like a dare, sometimes called the road to nowhere. One minute you're driving like normal, the next it's like the route just stops making sense. Add in boarded up houses people have spotted over the years, signs that tell you to keep out, and suddenly your brain starts doing what it always does. It writes a story. So the legends pile up. A satanic church, a haunted school bus, crybaby bridge, not one clean myth, but a whole messy playlist of scary little rumors. And the genius part is, they don't need to be true to work. They just need the setting. A place that looks abandoned but isn't fully abandoned. A place that feels like it's in between. The real haunting in Helltown is paperwork and history. In the 1970s, when the area was being turned into a federal recreation area, land got bought up, families got pushed out, whole chunks of a community changed shape. That creates gaps, empty spaces, roads that don't connect the way they used to, and humans hate gaps. We fill them with meaning. Then the loop kicks in. The rumors bring visitors. Visitors bring trouble. Trouble brings more warning signs and tighter enforcement. And the tighter it gets, the more people whisper. See? They don't want you to know what's out there. If you want the real creep factor, it's not demons. It's the fact that this park area even had a toxic dump site to clean up. The kind of thing that makes a place feel cursed without any ghost involved. So yeah, Helltown is scary. Not because it's hell, because it's unfinished, misunderstood, and everyone keeps showing up to make it worse. Number 4. Cardin, Oklahoma. Cardin. Oklahoma isn't spooky in the fun way, it's spooky in the "this really happened" way. Picture a tiny town in northeast Oklahoma where the most famous thing left behind is a water tower that still says Cardin, like it refuses to admit the game is over. Around it, the streets feel too quiet. Not small town quiet, empty quiet. And the reason isn't a curse. It's chemistry. Cardin sits inside the Tar Creek Superfund area, a place shaped by decades of lead and zinc mining. For years, mining meant jobs, families, kids riding bikes, mail coming to a real post office. Then the boom ended. The waste stayed. Piles of pale gray mining leftovers, called chat piles, became part of the landscape, like someone dumped a fake desert on top of Oklahoma. Here's the part that gets under your skin. You can stand there and everything looks normal at first. Grass, wind, a road. Then you remember what the dust can carry. Lead. Metals that don't care if you're tough or unlucky or not the worried type. They just sit in the soil and wait. Over time, the problem stopped being a rumor and became a decision. People got bought out. Families relocated. By 2010, the census basically reads like a punchline, 3 people. And Cardin was officially closed around 2009. A town didn't burn down, it didn't flood, it just emptied because staying meant gambling with your health. Cardin is what happens when a place gets caught in a system loop. The economy arrives fast, the damage arrives slow. The slow damage spreads through dust, water, and time. And by the time everyone agrees it's real, the only fix left is to move the people instead of the problem. That's why Cardin feels haunted. Not by ghosts, by leftovers. So if you ever hear someone say, "Let's go explore," remember this isn't an abandoned playground. It's a caution sign with a skyline. Number 3, Nome, Alaska. Nome, Alaska feels like the edge of the world, because in a way it is. There's no highway that casually connects you back to the rest of Alaska. You get here by plane or by water, and once you land, you realize this town doesn't just sit on a map, It sits on a mood. At first, it looks simple. A small city on the Bering Sea, a few thousand people, wind that never seems to fully clock out. Then you hear the old stories and you understand why Nome feels bigger than its size. Story one is the gold story. People rushed here because the money wasn't buried in a mountain. It was right in the beach sand. Imagine that. Standing on the shoreline, scooping at the ground like the ocean is dropping coins at your feet. That kind of history rewires a place. It teaches everyone to look at ordinary things and wonder what they're hiding. Story two is the rescue story. In 1925, when a deadly illness threatened the town, medicine had to reach Nome in the middle of winter. And the answer wasn't a hero in a fancy vehicle. It was a relay of dog sled teams pushing through brutal cold that becomes a legend for a reason. It's a reminder that in Nome, survival is not a vibe, it's a schedule. And then there's the third story, the one that keeps repeating in different years with different names. The Bering Sea. Storms that can shove water up onto the land and make the town feel like it's balancing on the rim of a bowl. Nome's mystery isn't ghosts and abandoned buildings. It's the way the place keeps flipping the same three cards. First, the promise of sudden fortune. Then, the community saving itself when it has to. And finally, nature showing up like a bouncer, reminding everyone who owns the door. That's why Nome sticks with you. It's beautiful, but it never lets you forget it's in charge. Number 2, Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Point Pleasant, West Virginia is the kind of small river town that should be known for fishing and quiet sunsets. Instead, it has a shiny statue of a creature called Mothman sitting right in town like a dare. And the wild part is, the legend doesn't live in some far-off mountain cabin. It lives a few minutes outside town in a place locals call the TNT area. During World War II, that land was used for an ordnance works, and what's left are these concrete dome bunkers like giant igloos half swallowed by trees. In daylight, they look weird. At night, they look like the set of a movie that forgot to wrap. That's where the stories hit in late 1966. People started reporting a winged figure with glowing red eyes. Not one person, not one night. Multiple reports across weeks, and then into 1967. The town got a character, a monster with a name you can't forget. Here's what makes Point Pleasant different from most creature stories. It collided with something real. On December 15, 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed during heavy traffic. Cars on the bridge, water below. A disaster that became a permanent scar in the region's memory. And once that happens, your brain does what brains do. It tries to organize the chaos. It starts asking, was it a warning? Was it a sign? Was somebody trying to tell us something? Suddenly, Mothman isn't just a spooky thing in the woods. It becomes a symbol people attach to a moment they still can't fully emotionally digest. Point Pleasant is a perfect amplifier because it stacks three ingredients. First, a creepy setting, those abandoned bunkers. Second, a simple character, Mothman, easy to picture, easy to repeat. Third, a true tragedy that gives the legend weight. When you mix those, the story stops being entertainment. It becomes part of a town's identity. That's why they don't hide it. They celebrate it. There's even a Mothman festival every year, like the town is saying, we're not proving it, we're surviving it. Number 1, Taos, New Mexico. Taos, New Mexico is famous for quiet. Big sky, mountain air, adobe walls, that calm desert hush people move here to buy with their whole life savings. And then some of them hear it, a low hum, like a distant engine idling somewhere beyond the horizon. The weird part is not that it exists. The weird part is that not everyone can hear it. One person will be pacing the house at midnight, unplugging lamps, checking the fridge, turning off the AC, swearing the sound is inside the walls. The person next to them will shrug and say, I don't hear anything. That is the Taos hum. A mystery that lives in your ears and turns your own home into a question mark. It got so serious in the early 1990s that a real investigation happened in 1993. University of New Mexico teams, plus heavy hitters like Los Alamos and Sandia, even a military lab, came in to see if they could pin the sound to something measurable. And after all that, the conclusion was basically, we can't prove a single clear source, which is the perfect fuel for a story like this. Taos survives because it hits three psychological buttons at once. First, it's selective. If only a small group hears it, they feel isolated, and isolation makes everything louder. Second, Taos is quiet at night, and quiet is a magnifying glass for low-frequency sound. Third, when you can't locate a source, your brain keeps scanning like a smoke alarm that won't stop, and the longer it goes on, the more personal it feels. So some people start to think it's the town, the land, the power lines, the government, anything big enough to match the anxiety. And honestly, I get it. When you can't point to the thing bothering you, you start building a story around it just to get your mind to sit down. And that's why Taos earns the #1 spot on our list. It doesn't need a monster in the woods, it doesn't need a haunted building, it just needs silence. Because in Taos, the mystery isn't outside your door, it's already in your head, humming. You've seen it now. These 11 places aren't mysterious just because of rumors. A lot of them are locked down for very real reasons. Private land, safety hazards, environmental risks, or simply because locals are tired of trespassers turning their home into entertainment. Personally, I think the scariest part isn't ghosts. It's how people get pulled toward places they were never meant to enter. If you love exploring, do it the right way. Respect the signs, don't trespass, and don't treat someone else's life like a thrill ride.